People have always taken drugs, whether for pain relief, or for pleasure, or as part of their cultural practices. Governments, through their police, spend billions around the globe trying to create a drug-free world. But all they've done is thin out the competition and create super cartels, while the most vulnerable people in our society are criminalized.
Millions of people around the world are stigmatized for consuming drugs. Others are persecuted and criminalized because their culture or livelihood depends on growing or transporting drugs. Prohibition of drugs has created an unregulated, untaxed, and purely profit-driven trade.
The majority of the world's drug production outside of Afghanistan takes place within the jungles of Southeast Asia and this great big line that comes from the Caribbean and sweeps deep into the heart of the Amazon rainforest. These two areas are absolutely vital for the planet's survival. As long as we have a multi-billion-dollar business that is able to operate in these areas without any form of regulation and accountable to absolutely no one, then we have no chance of saving these vital areas.
It's not simply just flashy drug cartels on Netflix, or not necessarily just the poor farmer in Colombia. It's the central key institutions of our age that are not just complicit, but hoping that the drug trade continues as it is because they're making a killing from it.
So on the one hand, you've got the IPCC telling us what we need to do, and they're right on, and then you've got the UNODC fundamentally undermining us. And it just so happens that most of the areas in which drugs are grown and through which drugs are trafficked are the very landscapes that are most in need of saving, that are key to our climate future.
The global transition to prepare for and mitigate this climate emergency needs to start happening now. We need to get our ducks in a row and implement effective systems of change in farming, in energy, in health, in food, in social welfare. We need governance that is functioning, that is accountable, and most importantly, that is really well resourced. Whether this is at a community level, a national level, or even international. And while prohibition exists, this is impossible.
There are leaders throughout countries around the world, in the global north and the global south, who are compromised in their ability to act on climate change by the compromises they have had to make to extremely powerful actors who work in the shadows.
For the world to prepare for climate justice, there needs to be common sense approach. The common sense approach is the prohibitionist approach to fighting drugs. Has not worked, will not work, and must change. Or people-centered policy, putting health at the center.
As long as there is a law that regulates the cultivation and market of the coca leaf, the people and the environment are protected by this legislation. This kind of legislation strengthens communities and restores the trust within the state.
We either bring the cartels and organized crime groups around the table, we invite them to the COPs, we ask them to make climate justice part of their agenda. Or we take the power away from them and we legally regulate the drugs trade, just as we have with alcohol, tobacco, and coffee. We legally regulate through a social justice lens to ensure that this trade works for people and the planet and not against it.